Coming up tonight in the cruise view, things start to get a little bit chic. Take a look at the indoor pools, and Sonic Odyssey hits its first notes. It's all coming up, so let's set sail. Welcome to day 7 of the cruise view on board the Quantum of the Seas. And of course, I'm Picone, and let's kick things off right away with our top stories. And at this point, we're down to just a single top story we're covering, which is the question of, is this an inaugural sailing? And today, once again, no new mentions of the word inaugural, though in our cabins, we did have another gift. This time it was simply the paper certificate acknowledging that we have sailed on board the inaugural sailing of the Quantum of the Seas. So it looks like, anyway, in writing at least, it is the inaugural sailing and we were on board it, even if nobody on board really knew they were on the inaugural sailing. But today, it was a wonderful day at sea, some great weather out there, and at noon today our location was about 32 degrees north by roughly 75 degrees west. We were at that point about 128 nautical miles away from the closest land. We were taking a direct northerly route from the Bahamas, so we were out to sea a bit, not tracking back up the coast this time. And the weather today was, as I mentioned, absolutely perfect. And our sunrise today was at 6:35 a.m. with the sunset tonight at 4:56 p.m. and it was an incredible sunset. Not a whole lot to see, but circumstances surrounding it made it special because we had absolutely perfectly flat seas. It looked like a giant lake out there, not a single wave to be seen, and just reflected all those colors right on it. And as for the actual weather today, we had a high of 66 degrees, which sounds pretty cold. Not sure if it was the relative temperature that made it feel warm or that it really was a warm 66, but when you're in the sun, it was incredibly hot out, but there was a breeze that made it feel very cold. It was a very chill breeze. Luckily, it was mainly felt in the front of the ship. If you were up on deck 15, anywhere that breeze was coming across the deck, it did feel cold. Everywhere else, if you're out in the back of the ship, it was very warm out today and just partly cloudy, but mainly sunny out there. And with such nice weather, for the first time this sailing, I did use the Windjammer's back deck for lunch today. There really weren't too many people out there. There were several people sitting out, but it was not mobbed as I had originally expected. I think the fact that it is so far from the food helps that. People just don't want to get their food, walk that far. But in either case, it was a very enjoyable lunch out there. No breeze, the sun was shining in, so it was a very warm and enjoyable lunch with an incredible view out across the wake. So I'm sure I'll do that more next sailing, as hopefully we'll have much better weather. But on to the day's cruise compass, and while it wasn't as full as some other sailings, it was at least starting to look like a normal cruise compass that you would expect. But the very first item I have to mention is one that wasn't listed on a cruise compass, and that was my Ripcord by iFly session that I had scheduled for 11:40 a.m. That was originally scheduled for 11:20 a.m. back on day 3, but of course we had lightning, heavy downpours, all sorts of terrible weather that day, so it was canceled and rescheduled for today. And I gotta say, that is a lot more fun than it looks, and I know originally they had said you got 2-minute session, now they cut it down to 1 minute. that was one of the things that kind of bothered me coming on, the fact that they really cut it in half, and 1 minute sounds incredibly short. But trust me, it is plenty of time. When you are sitting there watching people and you look at their runs, it feels like that minute just flies by. But as soon as it's your turn, that minute just stretches out forever. I felt like I was in there a good minute and a half, 2 minutes, and then looked over at the clock and there were still 12 seconds left on it. So it is definitely a very long minute, and that minute is plenty of time. I think if it had been 2 minutes, I would have gotten a bit bored floating in there and really probably would have wanted to get out at that point. So it was definitely the right move, and it's, I'm sure, increasing how many people they can get in there, which is the key, because everybody wants to get in and there are no slots available for ripcord. So do be sure to go out and sign up as soon as you get on board the Quantum. If you wait, you might not get on, and you really don't want to miss it. But going along with the actual compass and its items today, at 1 p.m. they had the 60 seconds or less game show. I did not attend it, but I did want to bring it up because it was listed in the compass, and it was one of the activities added to yesterday's CocoCay cancellation compass. So I'm not sure if they just copied some of today's compass over to yesterday or what the story was, but it was a little odd to see that show up the very next day again. And once again, it was in a poor time slot, middle of the day. Not many people usually attend game shows at that time. But then at 2:30, located in 270, they had the 270 Technology Tour. And while it's not a true tour, it is very similar to the Captain's Corner. It's a series of people that work in 270, the lighting, the sound, the head of the dancers, as well as some of the other aerialists and singer people that are really involved in Starwater and making that entire production and everything else in 270 happen. Basically come out, talk a little bit about what they do, about the venue, and then it goes into a Q&A session that bears a lot of likeness to that Captain's Corner. So if you've enjoyed the Captain's Corner, be sure to visit the 270 Technology Tour when it pops up on your compass, as it is very similar and I did enjoy it just as much. And following that, they immediately went into a robo show just like they did yesterday, the same one. They only did the Dance in a Box one this time, but they then continued as they did yesterday, repeating those robo shows every hour for the rest of the night. And then tonight we had another game show. This time it was If You Know It, Sing It at 7:45 in the music hall. And as I mentioned yesterday, they had a game show in music hall around that same time, and I thought it was a very poorly timed choice to host a game show. Tonight proved that once again. They had, in my opinion, a better format. In the past I've seen they had a bunch of people line up, go down the line, they start finishing the play a song, listen to it. If you know the lyrics, start singing it, and if you get it right, you get to move on to the next round. If you don't, you're out. Well, the way they did it here, Mike was in the middle of the music hall dance floor. They started playing a song, and anyone that knew the lyrics could run up and start singing the song, and if you got it correct, you then got a prize. So it was a much quicker process to get the prizes out, as well as a little more open to everybody in the audience, rather than you start the game, you show up late, you kind of miss out on it. But unfortunately, since it was such a poor time, there was nobody there. There was maybe 15 people. It was incredibly empty. The lower part of music hall had tons of empty chairs right up front. It was like 3 people that kept winning each round because they were the only ones there playing. So it was just an absolutely terrible choice of times, and it really felt more like a game of torture the cruise director staff than an actual game, as they worked incredibly hard to make it entertaining, and I personally did enjoy it. It was fun. The cruise director staff have been doing an incredible job of that. but it wasn't the game show that they were supposed to be putting on because it just could not function with so few people. And hopefully next sailing, they'll learn from this and schedule it at a different time because it's definitely not working out, and hopefully tomorrow night they don't have another one scheduled, as I'm sure it'll end up the same way again. But following that, I went straight across the hall to the Royal Theater for the premiere of Sonic Odyssey with William Close himself starring it. And before I even get into the show, I know I said the other day that I wasn't going to get into the technology issues, leave that for day 8, but there was pretty major one leading into this show. Their entire reservation system went down in some capacity where they could not scan any cards or WOW bands. So you had massive lines and crowds of people, and they had to manually type in room numbers for every single person to check them, which really just created a mass chaos leading into the theater. So they really got to come up with a better way of doing that. But at least once you're in, Sonic Odyssey was as incredible as it looked like it was going to be. The only thing that has me a little bit concerned is the fact that William Close will not be staying with the show, as I don't think anyone expected him to, but he was a pretty key part in it. It was kind of nice to see that he acknowledged the fact that he would not stay with the show, and even brought out the person that is sort of walking in his footsteps, trying to learn the role and take over for him. But the key part of Sonic Odyssey is the singers, the dancers, and then those instruments that William Close himself created. It feels like an upgraded version of the traditional Royal Caribbean show. A lot of that singing and dancing you would expect, except more focus on the music to go along with it, where I think traditionally the music's kind of just been in the background of it. Now those instruments are center stage. But even while they're playing, you've got William Close walking around the stage playing his instruments. And there are moments where you sort of see that artistic genius of him come out. You see that pride in the fact that these were his instruments, that he created them. This was his show, his sort of masterpiece. And even in one scene, he was just standing off to the side while the dancers are going, just sort of admiring what was going on. But it kind of stole the spotlight, in my opinion. Just him out on that stage in any capacity, it just flew right out into the audience. You could feel all that energy, all that pride, that accomplishment coming out. And in my opinion, that was the thing that sort of made the show. The instruments are great, the singers, the dancers, everything was great, but William Close himself with his instruments really kind of sucked you in. So I'm a little bit concerned about once he's gone, will that sort of energy, that excitement still exist, or will it feel like a traditional Royal Caribbean singer and dancer show? Will we kind of lose that energy surrounding these instruments that we currently have with him basically hosting the show himself? So we'll just have to wait and see. I'm not sure how much longer he'll be on the ship. He didn't really give an estimate, but I'd assume at least a couple more weeks, if not months. So if you're on the ship pretty soon, you're incredibly lucky, because he is a genius basically at what he does, and it really is something to see with him out there performing. But then following that, it was back across that hall again to Music Hall for what I'm not certain, but believe maybe the premiere of Groovy Town. They may have done it on the Transatlantic, I'm not certain about that one, but it is the new version of the 70s Disco Inferno party. My opinion, it's not as good. It felt very Ken Rush-like. I remember back either the Liberty of the Seas or Oasis of the Seas, one of those two, I'm thinking Oasis, there was a 70s party held by Ken Rush in Studio B, and it was one of the few 70s shows that I did not stick around for, because it was basically a club and once in a while somebody might get up on the stage to say something or dance, and that's essentially how Groovy Town operates. You can really see the resemblance in it. It was basically started out about half hour of a true club DJ playing 70s music, and one of the cruise director's staff sort of acted as the host of the party.
How you all doing this evening? Welcome to Music Hall. Sit back, relax, grab yourself a drink, and let's get this party started.
And was walking around interacting with people, making comments, saying different things, and trying to get the mood going. And about 30 minutes into it, Jimmy Rhodes made his grand entrance, basically kicked off the true party, and that was him along with Horizons, which is the normal band that can be seen playing in Music Hall. And unlike the traditional 70s Disco Infernos, it was a live band. So in that aspect, it was significantly better than the others. The live music really changes the atmosphere and the mood of the place. But it was that same style as before, where every 10 minutes or so, you get a couple people that from the cruise director staff, sports staff, the different departments on the ship that participate, going up on stage, doing a little dance to a song, coming back down, and the party goes on. So it really kind of drags out. If you're one of those people that goes to the 70s party to dance to the music, you know, if you were in the Centrums on like the Radiance or the Vision class and you're one of those people on the ground floor, you'll probably enjoy it. If you're one of those people that prefers to stay in the back or to be up on one of the higher levels watching the parties, it really doesn't have much to interest you. Having it in the promenade, the Centrums, it always sort of showcased the venues. There really isn't much to showcase in Music Hall, so it really kind of fell flat. It truly did not interest me all that much. I did stick around for the whole thing just to see if anything else would happen or anything special, but wasn't really anything special. So, not sure if I will go to it next sailing or not. It probably will be a skip for me for the future if they continue with the Groovy Town, but I'm sure there's some people it interests more. And that actual party lasted about 45 minutes, and then it went back to a DJ for the rest of the night, just playing the 70s music again. So, as I'm sure you realize, that was a much fuller compass than the past several days. In fact, it was probably as much as the past several compasses combined. So we're at least on the right track. This is something I've noticed in the past with cruises. Start out kind of flat, nothing going on, and then they really jam all the stuff in there right at the end when you are kind of looking at what you haven't accomplished on this cruise and want to get done and trying to get those done, and now you've got this massive list of things to do. So it's pretty typical way that they schedule things, and we're seeing that again. So we'll see what tomorrow has in store. Hopefully we see some more items, but at this point I've never seen the quest schedule on the last night of a cruise, so I have a feeling it will not be happening as sailing, which is a real shame. It is pretty much the signature game on board a Royal Caribbean ship, and not sure why they didn't choose to schedule it. I know a lot of people were wondering where it would be. You know, they could do Seaplex, 270, all sorts of places. So maybe next sailing we'll find out. It is 11 nights next sailing, so they have some more time, but with how empty the compass was, I don't think time was the issue in this case. I'm assuming they probably just haven't quite figured out how to make it work in a new venue. So maybe this extra 8-day period is enough time for them to realize that. But next, let's move on to the Daily Dine, and today we're going to take a look at Chic.
Okay, good evening. My name is Ronald. I'm the Chic manager on board the beautiful Quantum of the Seas. Just to give you a little bit of information of our restaurant Chic, of course meaning style in French. Chic is modern, it's innovative, it's refined. The venue, like the menu, is clean and refreshing. We do light dishes like sea bass, barramundi. We also have lamb T-bones available on the menu, and we start off with our beautiful crab cakes and grilled Catalan shrimp.
So, while we're on the topic of dining, I want to take a moment, even though we just looked at Chic, I want to step back to the Grand. That is where I ate again tonight. And two things that I wanted to comment on, both similar topic, and that is the formal attire requirement. A lot of people discussing this. Is it required? Is it not required? What do you need? And it seems like the jacket requirement is actually going to be enforced. Today, since we had it booked, on our TV we got a message that stated you must wear a jacket, and it was sent out because we were booked today. So it seems like everyone that books the Grand will get a message sent directly to them on the day of their reservation informing them that that requirement does still exist. So there's basically no way someone can show up and claim, I didn't know it was supposed to be this way. So we'll see if that helps at all. And the other thing, not positive, but while in line for the Grand, it looked like there were a couple people that had dress shirts, ties, but no jackets, and they may have brought some jackets out from the Grand itself to give to them for the evening. So I can't guarantee that, but it sounds like there may be some spare jackets that you can borrow for the night in order to get into the Grand. But moving on from dining now, we're going to take a look at our next venue. And continuing on with the topic of sunny days on this active sailing, we're going to take a look at the indoor pool area. Royal Caribbean ships have often featured one or even two separate pool areas. But the Quantum of the Seas is the first to feature three, with the addition of the first dedicated indoor pool in the fleet. Some ships have had retractable roofs over their adult solarium that acted as a main pool in poor weathers, but as a near replica of the main outdoor pool, the indoor pool is the first protected pool that is open to everyone every day, regardless of the weather. Like the previous indoor adult solariums, it too even features a retractable roof, making it good for any weather. The indoor main pool, at a depth of 5 feet 3 inches, is almost identical in size to the outdoor main pool. Unlike the one outside though, the indoor pool has a more typical waiting area around it. Instead, at the forward end is a separate dedicated waiting pool that, depending on the guest's makeup and weather outside, may be used as either a children's pool or filled with chairs for adult use. To either side of the waiting pool are the two whirlpools for the indoor pool area. Above the starboard whirlpool on deck 15 is an area that can be used for live bands and DJs. On the opposite end of the indoor pool on deck 14 is a large area with tables and chairs for the pool bar. This bar features an identical menu to the outdoor sky bar located directly behind it. And I have to say, I've been surprised by the indoor pool area. With the sun coming out and better weather outside, I was expecting it to sort of be empty and wasted space while the outdoor pool got crowded, but it's actually been able to maintain the same crowd levels. So even during the poor weather, there were a lot of people there. Good weather, still a lot of people there, which is hopefully a good sign that once we get more proper weather, summer sailings, things like that, there will still be enough space with that indoor pool, the solarium, the outdoor pool to distribute everybody, and it's not just mass crowds as everybody chooses the outdoor pool and ignores the other two. At least this first test is looking like it is distributing properly. So that about does it for today. We'll be continuing our journey back north tomorrow, our last day of this 8-night sailing before we get back into Bayonne. Sure it'll be colder again, although I said that yesterday and today turned out to be a great day. But once again, I am Derek Cohn, and stay tuned for the links.